Thank you for watching QTV News. We take a look at stories making headlines in our news. Chief Government spokesperson Dora Sidia has challenged the opposition in the country to provide solutions to the challenges facing the country. A team of government officials is in South Africa to negotiate and seal the deal for the importation of electricity. And the Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, says it expects President Edgar Lungu to speak to the critical issues affecting the economy as he officially opens the National Assembly. And our details in our news. Chief Government spokesperson Dora Sidia has challenged the opposition in the country to provide solutions to the challenges facing the country instead of merely criticizing the government. Speaking to journalists during the weekly briefing, Ms. Sidia says the opposition only finds pride in making negative comments about the economy and government policies, which is becoming boring. She says the opposition in the country has become irrelevant and non-existent and only exists by name. Ms. Sidia states that while the US, Israel and Japan and China are increasing their support to government in ensuring that some challenges the country is facing are addressed, the opposition is busy throwing negative sentiments about the country to the world in the hope that this is what will get them into State House.
And I'm very happy that now the investigative wings have said, don't waste our time if you have nothing better to say. Because if you look at the statistics at the SEC, it shows that a lot of the reports they get is just rumor mongering. It wastes money, your money, the taxpayers, for the police to just sit and be chasing stories that are not true. Let real corruption be fought. But let us not waste each other's time saying we are fighting corruption because people believe that's the only way to get State House. If you have not been elected to go to State House 5 times, it doesn't matter whether you say, oh, Dora Sidia this or President Edgar Lungu this, the people will not vote for you because you are offering nothing except tantrums. Busy on the internet. When do you work? And then you say, no, we are hungry. President Lungu, we are hungry. But the whole day you're on radios, you're on the internet. When do you say, let me look after myself, let me be productive? Isn't it? So you young men and women in this room, you are productive because you are working. But we must stop a culture in this country where people are not working, they are just busy on the phones and on radios complaining. Complaining is one thing, but what are you doing yourself for your country? While our colleagues, especially in opposition, they have the liberty to call radios or to be on radios and make fake promises and so on. We in government, we have a job to provide hope to the people of Zambia. And it's good that we've had the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Energy today, because this drought we are talking about, it's also where our power, our hydropower source is. Now, when they say the government has failed us, we'll sort it out. Who can sort out climate change overnight?
Speaking at the same briefing, Agriculture Minister Michael Katambo reiterated that government will not introduce price controls on mealie meal, however stating that the issue of high mealie meal prices is being addressed. He has encouraged Zambians to seriously consider diversifying on food they consume rather than being solely dependent on shima.
Once we intensify and increase and enhance production and productivity, the country will be very much food secured and there will be stability in the mealie meal, which is our staple food. And what is not waiting also is that we are not only supposed to be focusing only on maize and mealie meal as in shima. There are other crop commodities, even FRA that buys. FRA buys soybeans, buys paddy rice, and paddy rice even for school feeding programs. It's one way also of supplementing it from other than mealie meal. So cassava also, even cassava blending it with maize. These are issues that we need to address, even you as journalists, that information you need to disseminate out there. That is only not mealie meal, which is our staple food, but even other crop commodities are so nutritious to our health that we can also consume as citizens, as a nation.
Energy Minister Matthew Nkuwa says a team of government officials is currently in South Africa to negotiate and seal the deal for the importation of 300 megawatts of electricity from that country. Mr. Nkuwa further states that arrangements are in the process for a ministerial meeting with his Mozambican counterpart to negotiate for the importation of a further 300 megawatts to cushion the 700 megawatt electricity deficit the country is facing. He says government is committed to addressing the power crisis through various projects, such as the 2,400 megawatt Batoka Gorge project. Mr. Nkua has assured the nation that the situation will improve by December, when the country would have received some rains by then.
We have 700 megawatts of power deficit in this country, and immediately we have a team. In fact, the team has been in South Africa from yesterday to today. They are still negotiating on a few things that they need to do, and they will be signing a contract soon, and then we can start importing this power. This is the immediate measure that we are taking as a nation to make sure that people have got power. It is better to get power, even if it's a little bit more expensive. It is better that we get the power and people can be able to run their businesses. So this is for immediate measure. And then going forward, we are also arranging a meeting with the Mozambican counterparts, and we would like to go there and have a meeting, high-level meeting at ministerial level, where we'll see if we can also get another 300-400 megawatts if at all they have the power. But I must say that the power that we are getting from Eskom, we are not only getting 300 megawatts because South Africa has got similar challenges like Zambia. They have also got power shortages. So they are just being brotherly by allowing us the 300 megawatts.
The Consumer Unity Trust Society is concerned by the recent statement by Minister of Energy Matthew Nkua that the importation cost of electricity will be passed on to the consumers. CAT's National Coordinator Chinai Mukumba wants the minister to clarify and explain how long the expected increase in electricity tariffs will last and how much it will be. Ms. Mukumba states that inasmuch as it is understandable that electricity cannot be subsidized due to financial constraints, there is need for some of the decisions being made to be explained thoroughly to the consumers. She says there is need for government to explain how the fact that ZESCO is still generating some electricity will also be considered as the tariffs are increased.
As a country, we need to be looking at measures where we can mitigate some of the load shedding we have been seeing over the past couple of months. And importing electricity is indeed one of the ways that we feel can address this situation. The remarks, however, by the Ministry of Energy in terms of the fact that consumers will have to carry the brunt of the burden gives us some concern. We do understand that the government cannot be essentially subsidizing electricity due to our own fiscal constraints. However, it is important to recognize that ZESCO is still generating electricity, and so it's important to understand how those tariffs will also be applied to locally generated electricity. Further to that, it's important to also hear from the Ministry of Energy for how long we will be seeing this increase in tariffs, largely because we still have not yet received the cost of service study that's supposed to communicate to all stakeholders the true cost of electricity to ensure that consumers are not unfairly subsidizing some of the inefficiencies that exist, for example, in ZESCO. So some of these clarifications need to be communicated for us to be able to understand how this importation of electricity will affect all consumers.
But Energy Minister Matthew Nkua says consumers and Zambians in general should try not to bring in politics with regards to the issue of paying for the cost of importing power. He says importing electricity is the only way the country will have electricity, and therefore citizens will have to incur the cost through tariff adjustments.
I wish to know that Zambia is the cheapest in terms of electricity, and if people need power, then they just have to pay for it.
The Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, says it expects President Edgar Lungu to speak to the critical issues affecting the Zambian economy as he officially opens the fourth session of the 12th National Assembly on Friday, 13 September 2019. CTPD Executive Director Isaac Mwaipopo says it is also the considered view of the organization that the president's speech should also clearly explain the roadmap towards economic recovery. Mr. Mwaipopo says the speech must address issues regarding how Zambia will be set on the path to economic recovery, considering that economic growth has continued to reduce and is projected to reduce further to 2.9% in 2019 from 3.7% in 2018. He also notes that foreign reserves have fallen from $2.4 billion in 2016 to 2.1 billion United States dollars in 2017 and $1.57 billion at the end of 2018, thereby compromising macroeconomic stability and resulted in a higher cost of living. Mr. Mwaipopo states that considering that Zambia has contracted excessive debt, way over 20 billion United States dollars, inclusive of public guaranteed debt and domestic arrears, and interest payments have crowded out government spending towards the social sectors, it is hoped that the 2020 national budget will not follow the trajectory of the 2019 national budget, which reduced allocations towards social protection and health due to increased spending on debt interest payments from about 20% of the budget to 27%.
The official opening of Parliament by the head of state raises a lot of expectations from a number of citizens. That also applies to the civil society organizations. This follows a number of challenges that this country has been facing in the recent past. And as the President gets to address Parliament during the official opening, from the Center for Trade Policy and Development, we expect the President to touch on some of the critical issues that have been facing the Zambian people, critical issues that have been affecting the Zambian economy, making life quite challenging for a number of citizens. Key among the issues that we hope the President will touch on is giving a clear guidance in terms of the roadmap towards economic recovery for the Zambian economy. We also expect the President to give clear guidance with regards to the rising public debt, which has continued to impact negatively.
Vice President Inonge has described former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe, who died last week at the age of 95, as a distinguished, selfless statesman who immensely contributed to the liberation of Southern Africa. Speaking after signing in the Book of Condolences opened at the Zimbabwean High Commission in Lusaka, Ms. Wina says Mr. Mugabe, who died in Singapore, will be remembered above all for his immense contribution to the liberation of Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, and the continent as a whole from colonialism and racist rule. She says Mr. Mugabe was an exceptional leader and freedom fighter.
Zimbabwe is on Saturday due to begin a period of national mourning following the death of Robert Mugabe, the former revolutionary hero who ruled Zimbabwe for 37 years. Former President Robert Mugabe, who died in Singapore last week, has been declared a national hero. Vice President Inonge extended her sincere condolences to the government and the people of Zimbabwe. Ms. Wina wrote in the book, and I quote, "His legacy as a defender of the liberation struggle and revolutionary against colonialism will continue to serve as a source of inspiration to African leaders."
On behalf of the government and people of the Republic of Zambia, and on my own behalf, I wish to convey my deepest condolences to the people of Zimbabwe and the bereaved family on the loss of a great son of Africa. President Robert Gabriel Mugabe was indeed an exceptional leader and a freedom fighter who fought for the liberation of Zimbabwe, the Southern African region, and the continent as a whole.
Zimbabwean High Commissioner to Zambia, Gertrude Takawira, says Zimbabweans are comforted by the gesture of sympathy shown.
To have you here, we know the special relationship that His Excellency President Mugabe had with Zambia, the love for the Zambians, and his passion to see all of us as Africans come together.
Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, Secretary General Chileshe Kapwepwe shares how they will remember Mr. Mugabe.
He was a founding father of COMESA and made a great, tremendous contribution to African and regional integration. So we will remember him for his contribution, and I think that the message is that we should not forget where we came from. We should not forget our founding fathers, because they had a great message and they kept continuously reminding us of who we are.
Favorite Kalando, QTV News in Lusaka.
The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, says the current happenings in the country pertaining to the continued rise in the cost of basic essential items and increased load shedding should be a source of concern. According to the center's basic needs and nutrition basket for the month of August 2019, the cost of living for a family of 5 living in Lusaka increased by 231 kwacha from 5,979 kwacha 57 ingwe in July to 6,210 kwacha 76 ingwe in August, showing a 3.9% increase. JCTR Social and Economic Program Officer Chanda Chileshe says the increase in the cost of living is attributed to the rise in prices of some food items, which include rice, beans, and kapenta. Mr. Chileshe says the continued rise in the cost of living is distressing, as this is perpetuating hunger, especially among the marginalized who are already struggling to afford a decent living. He says the center notes that this unfortunately compromises the enjoyment of human dignity, especially among the poor. Mr. Chileshe states that to address the high cost of living, which is subsequently perpetuating hunger and the problem of load shedding, the JCTR feels it is imperative that government puts in place appropriate measures and interventions.
But if the cost of living continues to go up, this is preventing them from living dignified lives and having the required 3 meals which they are supposed to have in a day. So as JCTR, we are giving a number of recommendations to government. These include where government needs to partner with Millers Association of Zambia and researchers in Zambia to try and see how best this problem of high cost of living can be resolved. Government also needs to enhance the amount of relief food that they are delivering in places that have been highly hit by hunger, especially in the southern part of the country. So there is need for government to enhance the amount of relief food that they are taking to those places. We are also urging government to put up deliberate policies that will ensure that Zambians start to consume local foods. So this can be done by increasing the import tax of foods that we can produce locally in our country. For instance, foods like cassava, foods like fruits, those foods that we can locally produce, let them increase the import tax so that local farmers would be encouraged to produce more of those foods, as this will help us to address the challenge of high cost of living.
The Situkule Consortium says the revoked appointment of George Siame as Financial Intelligence Center Board Chairperson following a public outcry erodes public confidence in the operations of the law enforcement agencies. Executive Director Nicholas Piri says the President's decision to appoint and later revoke the appointment of Mr. Siame raises questions on whether the relevant law enforcement agencies did their job in undertaking thorough background checks on the appointee. Mr. Piri states that presidential appointments in general and appointments to such sensitive public institutions like the FIC are preceded by a thorough due diligence process, which includes background checks for criminal records, issues of integrity and morality, considering that such institutions must be led by individuals whose integrity and moral credentials are above board. He says if the President was not advised by the relevant law enforcement agencies on this particular appointment, citizens must be worried about the operations of the law enforcement agencies, who in essence must guarantee public safety. Concerned environmentalist William Harrington says he will not give up in his quest to have a tribunal constituted to investigate the degazation of Lusaka East Forest Reserve number 27. Mr. Harrington hopes that Chief Justice Irene Mambilima, whom he has petitioned, will undertake her statutory functions under the Parliamentary and Ministerial Code of Conduct and set up the tribunal. Speaking at a media briefing in Lusaka, Mr. Harrington says he has been assured by the chambers of the Chief Justice to expect a response to his petition beginning Monday, 16 September 2019. Mr. Harrington says his hope is that the Chief Justice will not deny him and his fellow petitioner, senior citizen Robert Chimambo, the constitutional and legal right to be heard through a tribunal. He has maintained that the degazation of the Lusaka East Forest Reserve number 27 is an illegality and a breach of the Republican Constitution. Meanwhile, shortly before addressing the media, Mr. Harrington was called by the chambers of the Chief Justice to pick up a letter supposedly in response to his petition.
The impression I got was that Chief Justice could not attend to my application or our application because of the Ndola sitting. So I appreciate and understand the anxiety of the people who perhaps think that the issue of Forest 27 is a dead issue, and that our application has been rejected. No, it's very active. It's very active, and we will not relent ourselves. We will not relent in our efforts to seek justice for the people, because what's happening there, put it mildly, is the criminality against the people. It's a criminal that the people living in Chongwe and Chalibana can now depend on fecal waste for their water, drinking water, and other domestic use, including the animals. They say patience is a virtue. So we will wait until perhaps end of next Friday, 20th September 2019, after which date we have cause for concern over our application to the Chief Justice. Now let me also make one thing very clear here. We are not fighting anybody, any person at personal level. We are not against anybody personally. We are against injustice.
President Edgar Lungu has been called upon to use his speech during the official opening of the 4th session of the 12th National Assembly to deliver a message of hope to the Zambian people. A concerned Lusaka resident, Joseph Kachenjela, is appealing to President Edgar Lungu to encourage Zambians to preserve as the government ponders on solutions to improve their livelihoods. Mr. Kachenjela says such encouragement from the president will give people assurance that the country will prosper despite the current economic challenges. We have more details in this report.
All is set for the official opening of Parliament by President Edgar Lungu on Friday. The president is expected to, among other things, give policy direction for the country for the year 2020. For this Lusaka resident, Joseph Kachenjela, his expectation is that the president will give hope to the Zambian people that things will be okay soon.
What I'm expecting is the president to encourage, give us his perseverance, that all these wicked things we're going through, one day they will come to an end. We shall prosper. As the Israelites were prisoners in Egypt for years, but it came time, God liberated them. That's what we want now, the president, to emphasize on that issue.
Another Lusaka resident, Messi Mutali, expects President Lungu to tell the nation how government intends to address the issue of high prices of meal and load shedding. Bridget Chongwe wants President Lungu to be aware that the price of meal is too high for majority people in the country. Her concern has also been echoed by this other Lusaka resident, Langa Banda.
As you can see, so this is the things which the president
The session of Parliament President Lungu will open is the longest and runs from September to December. Lazarus Tuchula, QTV News.
The Cleaning Association of Zambia has presented a petition to the Patriotic Front Secretary General over some foreign investors that have continued abrogating statutory instrument number 22 of 2019 by continuing to use foreign cleaning companies. Association of Zambia Secretary General Lawrence Makumbi says some of these foreign companies pay less than the minimum wage and are externalizing more than $3 million out of Zambia to their countries. Speaking when he presented the petition, Mr. Makumbi has called on government for support in ensuring that the law is observed, stressing that some individuals are aimed at tarnishing the name of the image of the government by completely ignoring the law. Mr. Makumbi says more than 200,000 United States dollars or 2.6 million kwacha is taken out of the country each month by foreign cleaning companies.
They now want this contract to run up to 2021, December, just after the elections. The motive or the aim for denying our people, we can only speculate. However, 25 years is enough for our welcome brothers from across the borders to have reaped their investment. 2.6 million kwacha is going out of this country through the ShopRite contract every month. This is money that we need. Manda Hill Shopping Mall, Novar Mall, Food Lovers, Builders Hardware, City Mall in Solwezi, Pinnacle Mall, which has just been opened in Woodlands. All of these are investors that have come into this country, and they are taking away our resources because they are engaging their own people at our expense. Though the law that President Edgar Chagwa has signed for us is...
And receiving the petition, Patriotic Front Secretary General Davis Mwila says that the PF is a poor party and that it will always ensure the plight of the poor are prioritized in the country.
The ministry, we are going to engage the ministry in charge. And not only that, we've arrived at the minimum wage of 1,700, which falls under the Minimum Wages Act. The purpose is to protect the workers that doesn't belong to the union, because they have nowhere to cry to. So once you come up with the minimum wages, it means that you're protecting that category of employees who doesn't belong to the union. And it's always used as a guide to even those who are in the union, because that is the starting point. And I want to say that these are our people who voted for us, and we will continue looking after them. And I hope that not only the cleaning companies should implement the minimum wage, even other companies. And I would appeal to the Ministry of Labour to intensify their inspection in this company, to ensure that our people benefit from this minimum wage of 1,700 kwacha. But I want to assure you that we will take up this petition to the line ministry, those who are in charge. And I want to say that if you have...
Meanwhile, Mr. Mwila has instructed party officials to work with the Zambia police to stop some party members who are grabbing land illegally.
We expect our party officials to be disciplined. And this issue of grabbing land from people must come to an end. People must be protected. Innocent people must be protected. They should not be using the name of the party to grab land from innocent people. This must come to an end. People will be asking us in 2021, did you help us from these unruly chaps who are indisciplined, who have been grabbing land from us? What answers are we going to give as a party? So it's, from now, let's ensure that we protect innocent people who acquired land illegally. We don't want anarchy. Where you see, Mr. Chairman, that people are grabbing land from innocent, involve the police, please. Whether they are our officials, whether they are coming from UPND, whether they are coming from NDC, if NDC is there, I don't.
Disability Rights Watch says it expects President Edgar Lungu to touch on issues that will see the implementation of the mainstreaming agenda for disability across government. Organization National Coordinator Bruce Choma recalls that last time President Lungu was in Parliament, he made important pronouncements on the need to ensure that laws, provisions and policies for people living with disabilities are actualized. Mr. Choma states that some of the issues the President pointed out included the need for easy access to transport and tax measures, such as the importation of duty-free vehicles by persons with disabilities. He is therefore hopeful that the President will, among other issues, touch on the need for Parliament to interrogate the Disabilities Act, especially on the importation of duty-free vehicles.
From the perspective of the social sector and particularly the disability sector community, we are expectant in terms of policy pronouncements in this session. Our expectations obviously are that we expect issues to do with the implementation of the mainstreaming agenda for disability across government. Last time the President was in Parliament, he made very important pronouncements on the need to ensure that we actualize provisions in the law and the policy for people with disabilities, specifically in terms of access to transport, tax measures like the duty-free importation of vehicles. We're expecting that as Parliament begins to sit, they will interrogate the Disabilities Act, whereby it provides for importation of vehicles duty-free for persons with disabilities. But we have noted that that provision talks about modification of vehicles. Now, that provision alone takes away the benefit from other categories of people with disabilities, because the visually impaired, as an example, cannot modify a vehicle for their use. So as a result of that, they're excluded from benefiting from the provision that government has created. So the Parliament needs to review that act and begin to remove those restrictions so that that provision can benefit all categories of persons with disabilities.
Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa says he will work with Rotary International to set up a blood bank in Lusaka in view of the high demand for blood. Speaking when a team of senior Rotarians paid a courtesy call on him at his office, Mr. Sampa stressed the importance of the Rotary Club working with communities in helping the vulnerable and complementing government's efforts to addressing challenges the communities face, such as cholera outbreaks, poor sanitary conditions, and poverty levels in general. Meanwhile, Rotary International District Governor Ratnesh Kashyap says he's happy to be working with the city father in helping those who are unable to attain proper medical assistance due to financial constraints. A team of dental specialists consisting of 13 specialist doctors are scheduled to be in Lusaka from the 8th to the 14th of September 2019 to screen and operate on patients at the University Teaching Hospital UTH for free.
I think we have a blood bank at UTH, you went to UTH? But the main public hospital. But obviously the demand is too high.
Yeah, that's why.
And the government has opened up hospitals around Lusaka, a first level hospital calling. So those don't have blood bank. So the need is huge.
Yes.
So it's a very, very noble offer. So I'll look for that land either at one of the hospitals.
We'll send you a detailed proposal
Yes,
through the district.
Yes.
And they'll come and meet you.
Okay.
And then the moment you get a green signal on this, because
Yes.
that's the most important part. Where we do this,
Yes.
we need a space.
Okay, take it from me as mayor. We'll find you the housing at one of the hospitals. If it's not there, we'll find the land nearby where we can put up, and so that you set up the blood bank. So we're grateful for that offer, sir.
So one more thing. Thank you so much.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines in our news. Chief Government spokesperson Doris Leah has challenged the opposition in the country to provide solutions to the challenges facing the country. A team of government officials is in South Africa to negotiate and seal the deal for the importation of electricity. And the Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, says it expects President Edgar Lungu to speak to the critical issues affecting the economy as he officially opens the National Assembly. On that note, we end the news. Thank you for watching.